Today I want to talk about why I make generalizations about Korean people and Korean culture and Korean society, and why I make generalizations about American people and American culture and American society. So the real reason I make generalizations about Korean people and about Americans is because it's interesting. I'm trying to say things about cultures and societies, and the only way you can do that is by making some kind of generalizations. Now, people get really angry at me, okay, and that's fine because I think, so they'll see something, I'll say something, and then they say, oh, don't generalize Korean people. Or sometimes they even say, don't generalize American people. And that's fine, I understand, but I think they're doing it because they just don't agree with me, and then they have to kind of grasp for something that can kind of back up their argument. So they say, you're just generalizing. But my point is, you need to generalize if you're talking about a culture. Now, let me give you this example. Let's say you know nothing about Korea. You know nothing about Korean people. You know nothing about Korean culture. You fly over from America, and you spend 2 weeks in Korea. And you go sightseeing and do some things, and then you go to, I don't know, 4 or 5 different Korean people's houses. You go to your friend's house, you go to your friend's friend's house, you go to your friend's aunt's house. You go to these different people's houses, and every time you go to someone's house, you take off your shoes before you go in. Now, this isn't completely uncommon in America, but let's say you've never heard about that being a Korean thing or even more broadly an Asian thing. And then you go back to America and you report to your American friends, hey, Korean people take off their shoes before they go in their house. Now, did you just generalize? For sure you just generalized. Was it crazy to do? Of course not. Now, all of my videos I do, I'm not taking a survey. I'm not using empirical facts. I'm not going around and thinking, okay, I'll take a random sample of Korean people. I'll do it by surveying them in this spot, thereby making sure that my sample is very random. And then I can extrapolate that data to the whole culture as a society and say, I know by statistical analysis that Korean people think this way, or Korean people do this thing. That's correct. I never do that. All of these videos are just my opinions. All of them are generalizations I made from seeing hundreds, maybe thousands of Korean people doing a certain thing, and I'll do the same thing with America. And now, here's the thing. I understand what the Korean person is feeling. I see what's going on because I'll say something like, Korean people like kimchi. Now, does every single Korean person like kimchi? Of course not. That's absurd. But the statement is meant to be understood as a lot of Korean people like kimchi. Traditionally, Korean people like kimchi. When you go to every single restaurant, every time you order food, they give you a little thing of kimchi. Probably means there's a lot of Korean people who like kimchi. Does that mean everyone likes kimchi? Of course not. Doesn't mean every Korean person likes kimchi. And most of the time, when you're the speaker like me, when you're the person giving out the information like me, you assume the listener understands what you're trying to say. Like, I assume that when I say that, the listener goes, oh yeah, he doesn't mean every single person. He just means most Korean people like kimchi. That's fine. But when you say something controversial, if I say something like, not even controversial, but I just say Korean people like foreign culture, and then you happen to be a Korean person who doesn't like foreign culture, this thing clicks in your head. And this is not a Korean thing, this is not an American thing, this is a human thing where you feel like the person is saying something about you because I'm saying this to a Korean person and I'm saying Korean people like foreign culture. They go, oh, not me though. And then their rebuttal is, you're generalizing this little piece of data about everyone. That's foolish. And it makes them forget the idea of how communication works, which is when I say Korean people like cute things, Korean people like foreign culture, Korean people like kimchi, I don't mean literally every single Korean person likes it. I mean, there's a trend amongst the culture, amongst the society that makes people like it. So whenever I say something like Korean people like cute stuff, and I'm next to a Korean person who doesn't, they go, oh, you're implying that about me, and I don't like that. So I'm going to tell you right now, that generalization is a generalization, thus it's bad. What I'm trying to say is, the only way you could make remarks or comments about another person's culture, another person's society, is if you generalize. That's why I have to do it to make these videos, and these videos are hopefully fun, hopefully slightly insightful, hopefully teach you something that you didn't know before, make you think in a different way. That's my goal. And a lot of Korean people get, most of the comments, they say, stop generalizing Korean people. Stop generalizing Korean people. Very few, sometimes somebody will say, no, you're generalizing American people. Now let me tell you something, I am generalizing both. I'm telling you, this is an opinion. This is just something I see, and then I make a generalization so that I can make some inference about these two cultures, these two societies that are so different, that make them so interesting to me and hopefully to you as the viewer. Now when I do it with Korea, I'm doing it with South Korea, of course, and what is there, 50 million people in the country? So I'm making a generalization from the small sample that I see to 50 million people. When I do it with America, it's much, much worse. Think about it, America is 330 million people, roughly 6 to almost 7 times the size of Korea. So when I do this with America, I'm making generalizations from the people I see and from the television I see and the movies I see and other forms of mass media that I see, and I generalize it to 330 million people. That's even worse of a generalization. Look, America is easily 4 different regions, 4 different cultures, probably more than that, right? We're talking about a country that's 330 million, the 3rd most populous country in the world, and we have so many different cultures and societies. There's California. California itself is 32 or 33 million people. That's almost the size of South Korea. There's what we call the West Coast, which includes Oregon and Washington, and then there's what they have by themselves, we call the Pacific Northwest, where it's Oregon and Washington, and then there's just Southern California and Northern California. We consider ourselves different from each other in certain ways. There's the Northeastern Corridor, which is like New York, Boston, Philadelphia, New Jersey. They all consider themselves different. Then there's New England, which is like Maine and also Boston, and there's no exact barriers between these different cultures and different, whatever you want to call them. There's Texas that thinks they're their own country, kind of, and thinks they're different in every way. There's the South, what we call the South, and then within the South, there's what we call the Deep South, and then there's Florida, who thinks they have their own culture, and then there's all of the Midwest, which is that whole chunk in the middle, and then there's even things like Colorado, which is kind of an outlier, and we would think is kind of different from the Midwest, and the Midwest is like Minnesota and Wisconsin, and it's very crazy. So when I make a generalization about America, it's even worse, or even less credible, or whatever you want to say, than when I do it about Korea. But the big point I'm trying to get to is this. If you don't make some generalizations about a culture, if you don't make some generalizations about a society, I can't make these YouTube videos, but 2, you can't say anything interesting about different cultures and societies. And there's something, and it's fun to talk about different cultures and society. It's fun to see how humans behave. We're all genetically the same. I mean, we're all basically genetically the same. I know there's superficial differences, but basically we're all the same. And yet, if you grow up on this peninsula in Asia versus if you grow up in this place in America, you behave totally differently, and you have totally different opinions on things and totally different views on politics and religion and all sorts of stuff. And that comparison is super interesting. And I like making these videos because I like thinking and talking about these comparisons, and I like seeing people's comments talking about these comparisons. So the point is, if I don't make some generalizations about American and Korean culture, I can't make these videos, you guys can't see these videos, and we can't have an enjoyable time talking about different humans. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you hate this video, give it a thumbs down. If you love me or you hate me, hit the subscribe button. This video, give me your comments. I want to know what's going on. Like, this is probably not a very interesting video, but like, I'm trying to show you guys like the reason I have to make these generalizations and why the attack I get so many times and so many comments are just, he's generalizing. Why that attack isn't really a good way to invalidate my argument. If you want to invalidate my argument, you got to use some real, logic or something beyond just he's generalizing. That's a bad attack. So if you have any ideas on this, please leave them in the comments below. Remember, these videos come out every Friday at 7 p.m. So if it's after 7 p.m. on a Friday, a new video has come out. And of course, please remember the most important thing of all. Have a super awesome day.
창훈 그리고 김유리 덕분에 저는 이런 영상을 만들 수 있어요.
여러분의 지원 덕분에 이번 영상을 제작할 수 있었습니다.